Hey everyone, this is Philip, and this is the best of the week for the Everyday Fighter podcast.
You know, it just became this thing where life was essentially, I worked from home because I live out in San Diego and the offices for the job are in Arizona. So my life consists of waking up at 7:38. She had already gone off to work. I'd get up, I'd kind of dink around work, put in as much as I could to make it seem like I was working, and then watch YouTube and Netflix the rest of the time. And then about 3-4 o'clock, clock out of work, put on a Netflix show on my iPad, sit on the couch, and just watch Netflix and eat Oreos. And that was life. And then every once in a while I would go like get a slice of pizza because we had this amazing pizza joint like right behind our apartment complex. So it was like eat pizza and Oreos, watch Netflix, and kind of work. And that was life. I never left. We didn't go anywhere. We didn't really, travel or do or experience anything new or do anything. It was just, that was all that life was. And it just got depressing, as I'm sure you can imagine. It just got, boring. And you get into that rut of like, this is life. And unfortunately, science tells us that rut also scientifically equals just an ever expanding waistline, which is definitely what happened to me. So, I
mean, leaving what you had known up to that point, realizing that, wow, I mean, like you said, kind of getting to the point where you followed the rules, you followed the steps, and you didn't get that happiness that was promised there. You ended up in limbo for pretty much, right?
Yeah, and it was an extended limbo because I got there pretty fast in my subconscious. I think my subconscious knew that I was in this area where if I pushed forward too far in any direction, everything was going to kind of crumble. You just sit. It's kind of like, House of Cards. If you just sit and don't move, then it stays up. But if you move, if you do anything, it's going to cause too much wind and the whole thing's going to come crumbling down. And I think in the back of my head, I knew that was the case. And so I just sort of froze in place. And so instead of pushing anything in any one direction, like it's interesting because leading up to the catalyst that caused the change to break out of that, one of the things that got me into a place where that could happen was I started to be less okay with the questions I had, like from a religious standpoint or from my relationship standpoint. I started to kind of like push a little bit, and I just kind of got after. I mean, we were together for 7 years, and you can only last so long, just like suppressing everything. And so, I got to the point where I just had to start saying things. And so at church, I would bring things up, and then we would go home and it would be very awkward because she'd be like, are you leaving the church? Like, what's going on? What are these questions coming from? And then that would cause issues in our relationship. And then I'd have conversations with family members that were along the same lines, just, frustrations and questions that I've always had. And, just letting the real me out, you know what I mean? Letting my actual feelings out as opposed to what it was before, which again was like, let me not move because and let me try and like shelter everyone out there from like the real questions that I'm having, because if they see the real me, it's going to rock the boat, and I don't want to be the one that rocks the boat.
So even then you've had these feelings inside for a while, like kind of suppressed. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That I think is a byproduct of any religious upbringing. You're told, no, don't think that, don't think that, don't think that. You can think these things. So pick any of these things you want to think, but don't think these over here. And I was always like, yeah, but what about these things? Let's talk about it. And there was just a lot of, again, it was like, just don't rock the boat. Because I don't know. And so I don't really want to go there and be, it could be on unsolid ground. And, just simple things like, gay marriage was a big one.
Mm-hmm.
for a lot of years that I thought I had figured out how to balance the two.
Reconcile them, right?
Yeah. And,
Yeah.
and I thought I had, and then, there were some other things that happened that caused issues, and there were just, general questions that I had and issues that went deeper than the surface level philosophy that was sort of taught. And anyway, so there was just a lot of this searching for, like, I felt like I was doing what I was supposed to be doing from a doctrinal standpoint, and yet I didn't feel it. Like everybody else was sort of describing this feeling of connection with a higher power, with like the people around them. They were feeling something that I never was.
Even as I mean, it sounds like this was kind of innate in you for a long time, not just, after your mission.
Oh, yeah, no, this is like
as a child.
I never really felt it. And I when I was a kid, when you're young, this is me as a 32-year-old talking about young people. I'm still young, but when you're younger than I am now, there's a tendency to attribute some emotion, like some of those things that they describe from a religious standpoint. I would say, oh no, it was this emotion that I felt. So like happiness or sadness or calm, or, something that probably came from some other source, some other thing that, like, I am innately moved and touched by art, whether it's music or drawn art or the spoken word or movies, any of that kind of stuff. And so there were a lot of church-made art and songs and things like that that would move me to emotional responses, and I would attribute that to be this feeling that the church was describing. But then I would get that same exact feeling when I was listening to a song by Breaking Benjamin. So, like, if you compare the two, Breaking Benjamin is like a heavy metal band. Heavy metal band. and it didn't make sense. And I remember in high school, one time I asked I had a teacher. Mormons go to what's called seminary during their high school. They take an hour, one of their periods, they go out to this other place and they learn. There's a teacher that goes there and teaches them. It's a Mormon thing. Anyway, so I went there, and I legitimately asked in one of those classes, I was like, is there rock music in heaven? Which sounds like it sounds like a teenager question that's like trying to rile somebody up, but I actually wanted to know. Right. Because I was like, I need to know if the feeling that I feel that is the same here as it is when I watch a movie, a church movie, or listen to a church song, the feeling is the same. So is it the feeling that I'm attributing wrong, or is this actually is this something that has something? I had a deeply philosophical mind at a young age. But that was something that gave me pause. And later, when I got into one of the things that convinced me, one of the final things that convinced me to that I didn't really need or want to go to church anymore, was we spar on Saturdays. And after the first few weeks when you spar, you have no idea what you're doing. And it's not fun. It's mostly just you getting punched in the face, and you're like doing this all the time and jerking around and everything. But after about a month or two, but this is probably 3 months before my first fight, I started to realize that sparring was the most spiritual experience that I had ever had. And I found myself looking forward to it as though it was the thing that I should have been looking forward, that I thought I was supposedly looking forward to at church. And I found the weight, that spiritual weight that I was looking for from church. I found it being fulfilled by sparring. And I found myself thinking, why am I wasting time even considering the church aspect of it? I'm getting everything that I didn't even realize I was looking for just from sparring, which just so that everybody's clear, sparring is punching other people in the face and getting punched in the face by other people. Like that's what that is. But and since then, sparring it's like church for me.
then just over time, I came up with the following mantra or totem to bring me back to reality. So, for example, if I am just spent in a sparring match, right? Just tired and I just can't even think anymore, and I'm trying to get my bearings, then this is the kind of mantra, the sequence that I go through. Say for example, I'm kind of disengaging from a flurry, right, with my opponent, my training partner. I come back, I have a little bit of distance now, and I go through three things. I say, check your breathing, check your tension, what's your plan? Okay. So first thing is the breath, and that just has to come. Sometimes it's easy to forget to breathe, or not so much forget to breathe because that comes automatically, but it's more of like breathing in an intentional way, breathing so that I revitalize my body, not just try to recover, but taking in really deep breaths all the way down through the diaphragm, all the way to, I tell my students to extend their belly, right? This is not the time to be self-conscious about your belly sticking out when you're breathing. So really consciously, intentionally take deep breaths in to revitalize, not just recover. And that's the first thing I do. Second thing, when I say check your tension, so I tell myself to check my tension, is I check my shoulders. That's really a lot of times, most of the time, that's where my tension is when I'm under stress. Now that's whether I'm at home or at the park with my kids and they're just going crazy, or even in the ring. And so I just kind of start moving my shoulders up and down and start moving them around, making sure that I release a bit of that tension. And typically when I start with my shoulders, then that kind of trickles down all the way around the rest of my body. But once I'm able to release that tension and get loose again, then I'm able to move more effectively, move in a way that's going to serve me as opposed to hinder me. The last thing is, what's my plan? Okay, so I ask myself, what is your plan? And that's the thing that gets me back in the game playing on offense, so that I'm not just reacting to whatever comes to me.